Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Harinkyu if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Monday, March the 14th, and what better way to start off our Monday morning than talking about the biggest thing coming this week. I almost said the next big thing coming, but it is the biggest thing this week. I think that's fair to say. And that is the NCAA Basketball Tournament, also called the Big Dance. Now, we know 4 Alabama teams are headed to the tournament this week, a huge moment for Alabama basketball. And I don't necessarily just mean the University of Alabama. I mean 4 teams that are based here in the state of Alabama. Now, that is UAB. I am wearing my UAB basketball shirt today. I don't want anybody to get mad at me. If you are upset, you can send me a shirt for your team. I'll wear it on that day. But we have, again, UAB is headed there, University of Alabama, Auburn, and Jacksonville State. So today I am joined by our sports columnist, Joseph Goodman. Joe's here today to talk a little bit about these teams, what we can expect, and give us a little bracketology lesson here. So Joe, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us a little breakdown here. Now, you had a column this morning that you wrote about, again, these 4 teams and just the bracket in general. And you said that we got to use our brains and not our hearts. So I'm going to let you defend that position here for just a second.
Oh, yeah. Well, with 4 teams in, which is a state record, we're going to have a lot more eyes on the tournament this year, and people are going to be filling out these brackets. And if you're in a pool, you got to use your head and not your heart. So no picking JSU over Auburn, all right? You might not want to pick Alabama this year because they've been down, even though we thought they were going to be good at the beginning of the year. No picking UAB to the Final Four. I'm sorry, Ivana, but your Blazers are destined probably to not make that New Orleans trip. Yeah, that's what it is. We're just having fun, having a lot of fun. This is a fun time of month, a fun time of year. March Madness is the greatest sporting event in the country for a lot of people, including myself. I love it. Really looking forward to everything. I'm going to be traveling with Auburn this tournament because they're the best team in the state by far, and they have the best chance of making it to the Final Four. So I will be along for that ride and heading up to Greenville on Wednesday for the big Auburn JSU game. I cannot believe that the NCAA Tournament Selections Committee put Auburn up against Jacksonville State. I mean, it's just, why not just play this game in Alex City?
But that was going to be my question. Out of every team of these matchups, now first tell us how Jack State even got to the tournament in the first place. Which I'm not taking anything away from them. That's awesome. Go Jacksonville State. We are all, I think, happy for them here. But how did they get there? Number one, and number two, how did they wind up playing Auburn? So, and I'm just going to add one more question in there. So we've got 4 teams, right, that are headed to the big dance from Alabama. Only 3, if everything went according to plan, only 3 could advance from there because, again, Auburn and Jack State are playing each other. So is there a chance that we have all 3 of our Alabama teams, or not all 3, but 3 of them advance out of the first round?
Yes, there is definitely a chance that Auburn, Alabama, and UAB could all advance into the round of 32. I would say at that point, UAB has the toughest matchup, of those 3. And then Alabama. Alabama's an interesting case. They're all the way out in San Diego. But Jacksonville State, to answer your original question, was picked for the NCAA tournament because they won their conference tournament, the A-Sun. But because Bellarmine, which is a small Catholic private school in Louisville, just moved up from Division II to Division I in that conference, they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament for 2 more years, even though they won the conference tournament last week. So even though Bellarmine won the conference tournament, they're not allowed to go because they're not eligible. And so the default was to who won the regular season, and that was Jacksonville State. Now, you can make the argument that Jacksonville State doesn't belong in the NCAA tournament because they didn't win their conference tournament, and most one-bid that's the deal. You're a one-bid league. You got to win your conference tournament. But that doesn't mean Jacksonville State's not a good basketball team. They did win their conference outright. They smoked Bellarmine at Bellarmine during the regular season. Ray Harper is a great coach, and he has been for a long time. And so he has turned around Jacksonville State. This isn't kind of like a flash in the pan deal for the Gamecocks. I think they're going to be good for a long time. They're moving up to Conference USA in both basketball and football, and so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We all know that Rich Rodriguez has been named the football coach at Jacksonville State. Well, Ray Harper is a really good coach in his own right. He coaches the basketball team, and these guys are going to be competing for that Conference USA crown in the future. I mean, really, this is a great chance for a lot of JSU fans to, I feel like, get accustomed and get acquainted with the basketball program. If they give Auburn trouble, then I think that will really help Jacksonville State going into next year. Now, if they beat Auburn in like one of the upsets of a lifetime type situation, then I don't know. They'll start burning stuff in Jacksonville, Alabama. Like, I don't even know. I don't know what'll happen at that point.
It's interesting though that you mentioned the kind of arguments for people who say that Jacksonville State should not be there. But again, you mentioned also some kind of reasons why they should be. Again, we know that team was ineligible that you mentioned to get there. So Jacksonville State won the regular season. They took that spot. But again, they have earned their right to be there. They're not a losing team who just got picked out of a hat. I mean, they have, they secured that spot in a way.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said, they're a good team. They just, in that semifinal game, they could not make any shots against Jacksonville. It's kind of confusing. Jacksonville State lost to Jacksonville University in the semifinals of the A-Sun. And then Jacksonville University, the Dolphins, which are located in Jacksonville, Florida, advanced to that final and lost to Bellarmine. And that allowed Jacksonville State to go into the NCAA tournament. And all of this happened at Jacksonville State. It was a home conference tournament for Jacksonville State. So anyway, yeah, that
so you're picking Auburn is what it sounds like for that Friday game.
I'm definitely
That's just what I'm hearing.
Yeah, everyone in the country is picking Auburn except for like maybe somebody like hardcore, like I said, hardcore JSU fans, who are just gonna pick JSU no matter what. But yeah, it would be an enormous upset that's even an understatement. If JSU were to beat Auburn, which this entire season looked like a number one seed in the NCAA tournament until just the last week or so, or last few weeks. They actually went 5-4 over their last 9 games leading into the NCAA tournament. So if you want to have that little sliver of hope for JSU, it's the fact that Auburn has played its best basketball earlier in the season, and now maybe they've slid backward a little bit. But I think that helps Auburn kind of refocus themselves for this tournament. You can't deny Auburn's talent. They have the best front court in the country. Walker Kessler is arguably the best center in the country. And without question, Jabari Smith is the best power forward in the country. There's no one on Jacksonville State's team, period, who can cover Jabari Smith, who's a 6'10" forward who can shoot three-pointers at like a 45 or 50% clip. So huge talent advantage for Auburn in the front court, not just against Jacksonville State, but probably every single team that they're going to face this tournament, no matter if that team is from a major conference or not. Auburn has superior talent in the front court. Now, the backcourt for Auburn, that's what everyone's concern is right now, because KD Johnson, the guard, the really fun guard that everyone loves for Auburn, went 0 for 14 in the SEC tournament in that loss that they had. So we'll see which KD Johnson shows up for the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. I'm going to bet that he's going to do his part, and no matter what happens with him offensively, he will contribute defensively.
So Auburn, we're going to talk again about Alabama and about UAB here in a second, but we're talking about Jack State, talking about Auburn. What's the likelihood that Auburn goes all the way?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wanted Auburn to get a number 1 seed. Well, they didn't get that, but I feel like they are the best number 2 seed set up to go to the Final Four. So yeah, the odds favor Auburn to make the Final Four out of their bracket, or at least make the regional championship, the Elite Eight. You know,
I'm going to pull up here our the bracket. I'm going to take down this banner too. So if I know it can get a little bit confusing. We talk about all of these different teams, all these different games, but here's the bracket here. I know it's a little bit small, but you can zoom in on your monitor as well. So that is Auburn. It's not going to be surprising, right, if they make it to a Final Four. So what about Alabama? What are we expecting there? And we don't even know who they're playing in that first game yet, do we?
no, that's the big problem for Alabama. They got to wait for the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame, which is like the play-in tournament for the NCAA tournament. Now they have this thing called the First Four, and they play on Wednesday night and in Dayton, Ohio. And so Rutgers and Notre Dame are going to play each other in this play-in game, and the winner has to then fly all the way to San Diego from Dayton, Ohio to play Alabama. It's kind of a tough situation for Alabama just because coaches like to start preparing for their opponent as soon as they know who it's going to be. And now Alabama's coaching staff has to prepare for 2 opponents, up until they know who they're actually going to play. I don't think it should be that big of a problem for Alabama. But then again, historically, these teams that have come out of the First Four, some of these teams have really been able to make some Cinderella runs through the years. Last year, the team that beat Alabama in the Sweet 16, UCLA, they were one of these First Four teams. Like UCLA had a really bad end to their regular season. They barely made it into the NCAA tournament, and then they went on a huge run. Now, they had a lot of great pieces and really think things came together for them in the end. And they made it all the way to the Final Four. They almost beat the champion of the tournament, but they lost to Gonzaga last year. I can't remember. Anyway, this year it looks like maybe Notre Dame or Rutgers could be that team that gets hot. I think Alabama will take care of business, in this round, but you never know with these type of inconsistent teams that come out of the First Four. They can get hot, and that's all you need to do in March. I mean, March rewards teams that are hot, and Auburn fans know this very well from 2019.
It's you don't have to go in. It sounds like what you're saying is you don't have to go in on necessarily such of a winning streak. As long as you play well starting now, you can get there. You can get to that Final Four.
As long as you make it in. At that point, it's all up to what you do on that night, how you shoot in that first round, and what your draw is going through the tournament. The 2019 run for Auburn was such a magical thing because, if everyone remembers they made it to the Final Four, but that first game, that they played San Diego State, they should have lost. They could have lost at the end if the kid for the opposing team would have just made like one more free throw at the end of the game, then Auburn would not have won that game. But then they went on to beat Kansas, UCLA, and Kentucky. And it was like one of the greatest runs ever to knock off those 3 blue bloods. So yeah, you just got to get hot at the right time. VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, they're another team that went from this First Four situation all the way to the Final Four. I think George Mason might have been another one, although maybe they were seeded in the field to begin with. I don't know, but don't overlook these First Four teams. That's what I'm saying. Like, just because you barely make it into the NCAA tournament doesn't mean you're a good team. Like, look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M had a great run through the SEC tournament. They beat Florida, then they beat Auburn, and then they beat who did they beat in the last game? Anyway, they should have they could have made the NCAA tournament easily, but they were left off.
Right, and now it's almost like at this point, you make the best of what you got. So again, we talked about Alabama. They don't seem quite as, in your opinion, a surefire go to the Final Four. Seems like Auburn might have a better chance there of getting there. But what about UAB? Let's save, we saved the Blazers here to talk about again. I believe this is their first trip since 2015. I think you wrote in your column there. So what are we expecting from the Blazers this go around?
They're a really fun team to watch. They can score a lot of points. I don't think it really matters who they're going to play against. They're going to be able to score points because Jordan Walker, the point guard that everyone calls Jelly, he can really fill it up. He scored 42 points in the regular season against Middle Tennessee State. Then they played Middle Tennessee State again in the Conference USA tournament. He scored 40 points again against MTSU in the semifinals. That was a highly dramatic game that went into triple overtime and caught a lot of national attention for the Blazers. They went into the conference tournament against Louisiana Tech, and they beat La Tech for the third time this season, which is really hard to do for any team. So the Blazers have a lot of momentum. They got a really good 7-footer, who can protect the rim in Trey Jemison. They have Quan Jackson, who is a really strong defensive shooting guard. Quan Jackson is one of these players who could definitely become a pro in Europe or something because he's so strong defensively on the perimeter. He's a great player. He's going to give any opposing star guard that UAB is going to face in this tournament, they're going to have their hands full with Quan Jackson defending them. So that gives UAB a big advantage. And then obviously there's Jelly Walker, who's one of the best shooters in the country, if not the best shooter in the country right now. So UAB is a fun team to watch. They're going up against Houston, which is also going to be a lot of fun for old heads from Conference USA because, Houston used to be a rival from the old Conference USA days. UAB is actually 18-6 all time against Houston. So that should tell you right off the bat that UAB should have a chance in this game. And then historically, the 12-5 seed matchup in the NCAA tournament is always one of the best matchups, period, in the first round because the 12 seeds can always upset the 5 seeds. It's almost like a pick'em scenario.
So again, who's your pick on that game? And is UAB, how far are they going to make it, you're thinking?
Okay. I'm gonna pick Houston in that game. All things said.
So ugly. So ugly.
Listen, my heart is with UAB, but I think Houston's a great team. They hammered Memphis in the American Athletic Championship earlier a couple days ago. They have a lot of talent. UAB has a lot of talent too. So it could go either way. But if I had to pick a game, if I had to pick the winner, like and someone, was like, you have to put all this money on the line, I would pick Houston. Yeah. But all that being said, okay, if UAB gets by Houston, and they very well could get by Houston, then at that point they play the winner of Illinois and Chattanooga. And I think UAB would win that in that situation and go to the Sweet 16. So like I said, it all has to do with your draw. Just because I think Houston will beat UAB in the first round does not mean I don't think UAB could advance to the Sweet 16 if they beat Houston.
I don't like I'm not good at math, Joe, but I don't like yours. So that is I think that I'm not going to base my bracket here on this math that I don't like, but I can appreciate it. And good luck to you in your bracket. So last question I've got, if you are going to tell us who is in your Final Four.
Yeah, Final Four. Okay. Auburn, I'm picking Auburn in the Final Four. All right. And then I wrote it in the column and now I forgot. I do. That's how much it means to me.
We'll pull this bracket up. We'll pull it back up for you. You've got Auburn in one.
Okay, Auburn coming out of the South, out of the Midwest. All right, out of the South, Arizona. I think they have the easiest path to the Final Four of any number 1 seed. They won the Pac-12 conference and the Pac-12 conference tournament. I think these guys are going to run all the way to the Final Four. Out of the West, that's going to be my wild card, okay? I'm picking Davidson, the number 10 seed. All right, that's my Cinderella for this tournament. I watched Davidson when they came down and beat Alabama at BJCC. And this is a really strong team. They got a lot of good pieces. They got a player that I'm going to mess his name up, but he's a 6'7" guard, and he's a pro prospect. Davidson's a really good team. Okay, this is a school that Steph Curry came out of. All right, so it's not like they're nobodies. And then out of the East, I'm going with Kentucky. I'm sorry, I think Big Blue has a great team this year, and I think they're finally starting to turn it around. Well, they've been good all year, but I think they can get past Baylor if that ends up being the Elite Eight matchup, and Kentucky makes it to the Final Four. So there they are, right there.
So at least one Alabama team has made it to your Final Four.
That's right. Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler, that front court, I think, carries Auburn all the way to the Final Four. Yes, which I then will have to miss because I am going to be in someone's wedding who I will name that person. Michael Casagrande, our Alabama beat writer, has scheduled his wedding for April 2nd, which is the day of the Final Four. So that's gonna be interesting.
Well, look, congrats to Michael, to his fiance, who probably picked that date, and he's a smart man for going along with it. So congratulations to them. Joe, thank you for breaking this down. Again, I don't know that I'm going to take your recommendations, but I appreciate you throwing them out into the universe and giving them to us anyway. So thank you again for that. I know that we will keep up with your coverage, especially your coverage of Auburn throughout the rest of this month and into early April.
I'll be writing about all the teams. Okay. I'll be writing about UAB, but from Greenville, South Carolina. I'll be writing about Alabama also. So
it's going to be a busy month for you, it sounds like, Joe.
All right.
Thank you, Joe, and everybody watching. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow, and maybe we should have our own bracket challenge here in the comments. So let me know what you think about that, and we will see you tomorrow.